Hello YouTube, Donoran here with another video. Today I'm going to be looking at an important game in the London system. The London system is something that I play. If you're a London player, this is a must know. So I'm going to show you a typical London system setup, which if you play this, you're very familiar with it. And if you don't play it, it's a very easy system to learn and to play. This is your typical system. You have bishop on the outside, f4. You have a triangular pawn structure, which is very solid. You have bishop on e3. Your queen can come to c2, and that would be eyeing down on the king side. So this is a very typical London setup. Another theme would be knight to e5. And when you play this system, a lot of the times you'll run into a very typical setup for black, and I'll show you that here. And that's this. So black will play almost a reverse queen's gambit as a pawn structure here. King castled on the king side, knight behind c5, and dark squared bishop challenging the powerful dark squared bishop of white. This is very typical. I see this quite a bit. It is a recommended method to play against the London system. However, in my games, I find I have more difficulty as white when I play against an opponent who fianchettos on the king side and plays the king's Indian defense. It's harder to break through. So what I did was some research into a better way to play against that as white. And that's what I'm going to be going over today. What to do if your opponent fianchettos on the king side and you play the London system. How to play against that. And like I said, the game we're going to be looking at today is Spassky versus Bukic, if I'm pronouncing that correct, 1978, Bosnia-Herzegovina. Spassky plays the white pieces, and as we go through it, I'll show you the nuances and the differences between your typical London system setup, which I just showed you, and how Spassky plays, because his opponent plays the king's Indian defense. So we'll get going here. d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, signifying the king's Indian defense, bishop f4, the London system, bishop g7, and e3. Black castles, and white plays bishop e2. So you'll see a difference. The bishop does not come to d3, it comes to e2. Black has a very safe king here, fianchetto bishop, a powerful pawn structure, and that's why the bishop isn't good on d3 here, because of these pawns. Harder to break through. So it makes more sense to have the bishop on e2 to support this knight. Continuing, black plays d6, which is another difference that you'll see with the typical London system setup for black. Normally you'll see pawns here. In this situation, we're going to see a pawn here and eventually a pawn here. And what that does is it's trying to blunt this very powerful bishop for white. What white's going to try to do here is, because this king is so powerful and it's so safe, white is going to try to break through on the queen side. And that's the strategy that you want to attempt when your opponent plays the king's Indian defense against you. So continuing, white castles, black plays knight d7. Then we have h3. If you've seen another video of mine, I illustrate how h3 is a mistake. It's not always a mistake, and in this case, it certainly is not a mistake. But you'll see a lot of the times, players will very much not want to have their knight pinned to their queen, and this square is a weakness. So they'll play h3 or a3 so that their knights don't get pinned. But in this case, what Spassky is doing is he's creating an escape square for his bishop, because a theme that you'll see in a king's Indian defense versus the London system would be the knight coming to h5 to try to trade off this dark squared bishop. So Spassky creates an escape square, which will become very important very shortly. Continuing, queen e8, c4. This is another difference between your typical London system setup. We'll have pawns in a triangle here. What white is doing is white pushing this pawn to c4 as he wants to use it, open up the queen side. King side is very safe. Try opening up the queen side. That's what Spassky does, and he gains time by not moving the pawn forward one square at a time, but he moves it two at a time. Black challenges in the middle with e5. White uses the escape square on h2 for the bishop, which will become very important shortly. We have queen e7, knight c3, e4, kicking the knight, and the knight just comes back to d2. No problem there. We have rook e8 by black, and now we have Spassky is about to initiate his plan, and he does so only after his pieces are developed. Develop your pieces first, then implement your plan. Spassky continues with knight b5, and this is a really good move that I enjoy, and I like to look at this to try to see what Spassky saw. And once it unfolds here, you'll see that it's pretty brilliant. Spassky is attacking this weak c7 square. And black is forced to either defend it or move it. Black chooses to defend it with the queen. And then black pushes c5, attacking this square, this pawn, and trying to open up this diagonal. Black responds with a6, attacking the knight, hoping to kick the knight, but Spassky ignores the threat, and he takes on d6. Black happily takes the knight back, and white takes on c7. And now you can see what Spassky saw. He now, the passed pawn on c7, defended by this very powerful bishop, which looked extremely passive on h2, but now you can see how important it is because Spassky was planning on breaking through on the queen side. Black is forced to move his queen, and now white can take the pawn on b5. So in exchange for a knight, white has 3 pawns and a very powerful passed pawn defended by a bishop and an active bishop on b5. He's opened up the queen side, excuse me, and you're going to see how that's very important. And this game to me reminds me of an anaconda. Spassky slowly squeezes his opponent. So we continue. Black is going to try to bring his pieces over to the queen side, and he has to vacate his powerful king position. Knight c4. White is getting more active on the queen side. We have queen e6 attacking the knight. Queen c2 defending. Queen d5 attacking the bishop. And now we have a4. And now you see a very powerful bishop structure. Bishop defends the pawn, pawn defends the bishop, and no pawns can attack the bishop. So that's very powerful. We have rook e6. Black is trying to generate some play here. Rook on f to c1, lining up rook and the queen, defending the c7 pawn, and that looks very powerful. We have knight e8, queen c3, and we have knight back to f6, and that's obviously a wasted move. Black, the impression I get from black is they don't really know what they're doing, what their plan is, I'll say, because they seem to jump from one plan to another, moving on the king side, moving on the queen side. You should make a plan, either king side or queen side or center or whatever you want to do, and stick with that plan. So black's sort of jumping around here. We'll continue. We have knight e5, knight b6, and then the knight for white back to c4, attacking that knight. Knight on f6 moves to d7, defending. Queen b3, rook f6. Rook's lining up with the f2 square, trying to generate some more play on the king side. Bishop crosses d7. Black takes back with the knight. Queen b5. Spassky is hoping to exchange the queens. Black wants no part of that. Queen to f5, bishop g3, defending the f2 square. The rook moves over to a6. We have d5, queen f6, and now we have a5. And what white is going to want to do is push these pawns forward, slowly and cripplingly brush black. We have h5. Again, black is jumping from one side to the next. It's trying to generate play on the king side. And in the beginning, the king was very safe with the fianchetto bishop in front of it. And now black has had to vacate his pieces and move his pawns forward. We have b4. h4. White moves the bishop back. Queen f5, rook f1, g5, trying to come forward. We have f3. White's going to open up the f file in an attempt to attack the queen. Rook g6, rook comes back. Rook on a to d1. This is considered a bit of an inaccuracy. The rook would have been better on c1, defending the c2 square, because white is going to allow queen on c2, which you don't want to allow your opponent's queen to come to your second rank. Pawn takes, rook takes back, attacking the queen, and now we have queen c2. In the end, it doesn't really matter because the initiative by white is much too powerful. So we have rook d2 attacking the queen. Queen moves to c3. A better square would have been b1, putting the king in check. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. Pawn moves forward with d6. Very powerful pawn structure here. Black tries to bring the rook into the game with a6. This is not a great move by black. Black should have played probably g4, attacking the rook, forcing black or white to do something about that. But this is something that worries black. He feels he has to do something about it. So he brings rook to a6. And then we have e4, pawn moving forward, attacking the rook, attacks the queen. Queen c1 check, rook f1, defending, and the queen goes back to c3. Queen d5, which defends the rook. The knight needs to move. Knight f6, attacking the queen. And here is the dagger in the heart of black. Black takes on f6. Takes the knight with the rook, and I believe it was here that black resigned, and we'll see why. So black has to take back. Can't take back with the rook. He does have this skewer here attacking the rook and queen. That's not an option. He takes back with the queen, which he's forced to do. We have a nifty little move by white, and that's d7. And then we have two passed pawns. The bishop is trapped. Black is going to lose material unless he allows white to promote. So that's game over. And for me, as a London system player, I found that game very instructive, as I find it difficult to play against an opponent with fianchettos on the king side. So these concepts you can use. You're a London system player, and you see that. And I'm guessing if you're a London system player, you see that quite a bit. So I hope you found that video instructive. Feel free to leave me any comments. And there's going to be more videos to come. Peace out, YouTube.